Hi everyone.
Hi, Mr. Ellis.
So today we're going to be talking about annotating text for a deeper meaning. Now, we've got to realize first that text is a behavior. Writing things down is a uniquely human trait. I mean, you don't see monkeys and gorillas going around writing things like The Great Gatsby. So we have to ask ourselves, why write? And a brief answer to that question is in order to share. So throughout this lesson, we're going to be thinking about the ways that authors share. Now, first and foremost, does anyone know what annotating means? Dylan?
Taking notes.
Annotating means taking notes, right. Annotating is marking up the text or making observations on a separate piece of paper and asking why and how things work in a text. This engagement is called criticism. Now, to be a critic, it's important to involve yourself in the text. What does the text mean to you? How does a passage work to convey an author's ideas about the world? And finally, what does the author choose to share? Now, what the author chooses to share is huge, as there's a dynamic relationship between the author and the reader, a sort of conversation where perspectives and ideas are traded between the two. So, we've been reading Romeo and Juliet. What does Shakespeare share with us in the opening chorus?
He explains the fighting of the two feuding families.
Right. In describing the fighting, Shakespeare puts the reader directly into the action of the play. He chooses to show us first the fighting instead of the two lovers. A critic might ask, why does he not choose instead to talk about the two star-crossed lovers first? It's also important to be aware of literary techniques. They include devices such as similes, metaphors, like you may be familiar with, or allusions and alliteration.
What is an alliteration?
Alliteration is the repetition of word sounds for poetic effect. So you might say something like, the crippled cat climbed down the wall. Those three hard sounds represent an alliteration. Convention is another word for literary technique. When we convene, like the Republican National Convention or the Democratic National Convention, we come together in order to make life easier. So, at the Capulet Ball, what literary techniques or conventions does Shakespeare use?
He uses metaphor when he talks about the Holy Palmer's kiss.
Right. Other literary conventions include things like plot structure and character types. Now, you may be familiar with plot structure. It's shaped like this, and it starts with initial action, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. Now, you'll study these things much more in the years to come, but it's good to be aware of them at first. Remember, it's often necessary to read a text at least twice, once for structure and once for sentiment. In this way, you'll get a fuller picture of what the author is trying to say. And remember, the text is your friend, so when you're using it to make claims and observations, remember to get your nose in the book. Alright, 1, 2, 3.
Write, and read. Criticism starts with me. Take a test and mark it up. Criticism's not so tough. Analyze what authors share. Why did the author put it there?
Woohoo! Woo-hoo!